Hello, and welcome to another episode of The Launchpad, a weekly conversation highlighting the journey, experience, and wisdom acquired of a professional in higher education. The goal of The Launchpad is to share gems and insights that could be a benefit to higher ed professionals working to increase student success through equity. The Launchpad is brought to you by Launch Student Success. We partner with higher education professionals to launch students into success. And we'd like to thank you all for being with us today. Our esteemed guest is Professor Virgil Adams. Professor Adams is a full time professor in the Human Services Department at Cypress College. Prior to teaching human services, his previous assignments include teaching in the sociology department at Cypress College, Long Beach City College, El Camino College, and Santa Ana College. Additionally, he taught Introduction to Psychology at Santa Ana College's Psychology Department. Professor Adams earned a Bachelor of Arts in Sociology with an emphasis in social work from the California State University at San Bernardino in 1983. He earned a master's in psychology, marital and family therapy while attending Azusa Pacific University in 1990 and a second master's degree in applied psychology from Walden University in 2015. Professor Adams is very active in college leadership at both Cypress College and Santa Ana College. He completed training at Cypress College in the Leadership Development Institute and is a past faculty facilitator at Santa Ana College's Student Leadership Institute, providing workshops on conflict resolution, time management, leadership styles, team building, vision and goal setting, communication skills, and cultural diversity awareness. At Cypress College, he conducts workshops on building effective relationships, generational learning styles, and conflict resolution and emotional intelligence. He possesses certifications in conflict resolution, moral courage, addictionology and compulsive disorders, drug and alcohol educator, community substance abuse preventionist, and victim advocacy in rape crisis and sexual assault. Goodness, good sir, you have been doing a lot.
Thank
Yeah. Professor Adams is a graduate of Orange County Multi-Ethnic Diversity Leadership Institute and the Post Supervisory Leadership Institute of California. He serves as a member of the Orange County's Youth Motivation Task Force, providing underrepresented high school campuses with in-class presentations and mentoring. He is the advisor of both the A2Men Student Charter and Black Student Union, BSU, and member of the Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Culture for Cypress College in the North Orange County Community College District. Professor Adams was awarded the Outstanding Full-Time Faculty Award for 2008-2009 academic year from EOPS program, Cypress College Faculty of the Year in 2010 and 2015, and Who's Who in America for the Humanities in 2011. His curriculum consists of sociology, sociology for aging, self-esteem strategies, drug and alcohol studies, introduction to criminal justice and counseling in criminal justice, careers in criminal justice, multicultural aspects of criminal justice, victimology, and introduction to criminology. With that, welcome,
thank
Professor Virgil Adams.
thank That
Thank you
is a
very much.
mouthful.
Yeah. Thank you so much for all that. I think it's important to be able to share, all the things that you have done, listing in your bio. Sometimes we get folks who want to give us a brief bio, right, or a condensed, and not have all of the accomplishments. But I think it's really important for the essence and the spirit of what we're doing here at the Launchpad to be able to hear the breadth of accomplishments and work that you have done. And so, thank you very much for sharing that with us.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate
Is there anything that you would like to share with us about? Obviously, we have some questions, but about Professor Virgil Adams that wasn't in that bio that you'd like to share with us?
Well, I appreciate that. I have two gyms. One of them is 33, turning 34 in July the 8th. That's my oldest daughter. And my youngest, 2 years to her junior, she'll be 31 and turning 32 in September the 19th. So they fulfill and complete my purpose in life, give me challenge, inspiration, motivation, and a purpose for being here. And it's paying it forward, but it's more important just to enjoy watching these two young ladies, now young women, demonstrate the investment and the energy that parenting, and I'll say good, healthy parenting, can provide. And it's a pleasure to watch them grow and develop and mature as young women up today.
Wonderful, wonderful. Yeah,
Yeah,
thank you very much for sharing that as well.
thank you.
Um, let's go ahead and jump on in. Growing up, can you just actually just share with us, where did you grow up? What part of are you in here from California, from out of
Yeah,
state?
one of the few born and raised in California. I always try to just make a distinction. I was actually born in Northern California, but when, as I understand it, was I was old enough to travel, my parents moved from the northern part. It's a nice little town called Susanville
Mm,
above Sacramento. They're known for two things: the prison that's still there and the army base that was there. So you were either in one or the other.
wow.
So my dad worked at the army base, met my mom, married, and then as I was born, third of three boys, we relocated into Southern California, Inland Empire. So I grew up there until high school, and then I left, went to Riverside, still in the Inland Empire, and then came back 3 years later and began my professional working career. But yeah, so I'm a homegrown California kid and love it. So yes.
Wonderful. Okay, solid, solid. So growing up, let's say when you were in the Inland Empire and coming up through middle school, high school, what was the your current impression at the time about college? Was college a thing? You're going? Was there no clue about college at the time?
Well, it's interesting, and it's a great question. I would say, and we'll maybe talk about it later with some of the other questions that we have prompted. I grew up and this is the mid '60s when I was in elementary and in high school, junior high, and on into high school. But we had forced busing, so meaning that I was mandatorily bused from a lower socioeconomic area to an upper middle class area, and it changes the demographic of race and ethnicities. That was a stark change, and I experienced prejudice, institutional and personal. So with that, I can say I really saw some what they call a glass ceiling for the first time. Where when I was a young person growing up, you're among people who were poor like you, or not having a bunch of resources. So it became what was normal. So now I have a juxtaposition where for the first time I can see what money and privilege will provide, and I could see a disparity within that. So I can say, moving ahead, I might come back and revisit some of the statements that were told to me by limited-minded people. But my mom, when I was in high school graduating, finished her degree in sociology. And so as I'm graduating at 18, she's graduating from high school with a bachelor's. So I'm at one point thinking, ooh, I made it because I've graduated. And then I see my mom, who's graduating from college, went on to be a teacher, by the way, elementary school teacher. So I went like, I guess that means I have not finished. If my mom can do it having raised three boys and go to school, I really have nothing to say that would say, oh, I can't do it or it can't be done. So that was a very pivotal point as well. So I knew, oops, gonna have to continue this education thing.
Yeah, yeah, right on. Wow.
Yeah.
So, coming out of high school and going into college, would you say that you had a clear vision of what success looked like as a college student coming in?
I would say in some ways, in most ways, no. In other ways, that we have this problem. They call it imposter syndrome now, but before that, it was just limited thinking, where you could see people make it, but you didn't actually see yourself as being one of those people.
Mm-hmm.
And that's because when I grew up, again, we're talking, mid '60s into the now mid '70s, television, commercials, people of authority, bosses, people who had success did not look like me. There may have been a Sidney Poitier, but that's one. Later on there might be another person whom might be a success, and of course in sports, perhaps, maybe yes, but still there was a history of struggle of racism and prejudice and fighting against the institutions, powers that be. And of course, that you might recall, the '60s were known as the social crisis for social justice and social movement. So I'm right in the middle of a upturn of folks trying to fight against what we would call the establishment or some systematic and institutional prejudices. And again, you got to look at and realize that my parents were working class, blue collar, they call them, folks. So I did not have a vision or a true concept that I could be that boss, that leader, that person of institutional change, because I hadn't seen many examples, footprints, I like to say, to follow and walk behind. You know, maybe in an understanding, one of my upcoming question would be, who did I emulate or who did I put as a standard? Well, Martin Luther King, Booker T. Washington, and those were two very pivotal people in my life because they were all doctors. They were doctors in what then was a very non-supportive institution of education and science, and I use those two as motivation.
Yeah, wonderful. Yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah.
To that same point, to be able to have Dr. King, Booker T. Washington as those guides, if you will, those models to kind of emulate. Was there someone who was closer to you, whether it be on campus or in your family, someone who you saw on a daily basis that you would see as a role model mentor who was effective in like your first year, your first year experience coming onto a college campus?
Yes, I would say yes. Actually, from about 18 through 21, I had a mentor who I will say believed in me. I'm very still attached via Facebook. We keep in touch and comment. And he was one who, as I turned 18, took me in. I was in a law enforcement capacity, working in that career. I couldn't afford uniforms. Gave me his, which were very expensive, and I didn't have the provisions for any of the equipment needed to be what at the time they call them explorers, but this was a cadet program. And he befriended, he took me in and mentored me. He taught me a lot of how to address and deal with the real, I'm going to say, world of coming from an 18 year all you know is high school, and your high school parameters. You have no, I didn't experience, although I worked from 16 to 18, but those are part-time jobs and service oriented. This was an actual job of working with the public, making decisions, being mature, having appropriate reactions. And it doesn't come automatically, even though I had wonderful parents, loving parents. They only knew know what they knew. They didn't know what they didn't know. And he provided me, and by the way, he was actually white. He was not a person of color. Not that that validated, but I understood that this is someone who went on and secured his bachelor's degree as well. So I knew that can be done while working full time or pursuing that. So he served as a model, and he was one of my first initial models of never letting yourself down. He actually was great in a bunch of physical activities, at a fifth degree black belt in karate. He was very efficient, and later went on to upper ranks and within the department. So he was the first one that sort of lit a fire that says, there's greatness in you, and you need to not let anyone limit it or yourself. Now, again, my parents did everything they could do to instill that, but until you see it and have someone sort of take you by the hand and guide you through that, it still becomes, I can see it, I can hear it, but can I do it? And he pushed and encouraged and instilled that confidence because I watched him go through and complete it. So then I knew it can be done. It really could be done.
Right on. And you say you're both still connected to this day?
Yes, this is 50 years ago, and I have gone to be a colleague where once I was sort of he was the Yoda and I was Grasshopper, and
Yeah.
so now he's retired. He's been the assistant chief of police and gone on to teach criminal justice in a local college in the desert, and we talk on those levels. And I still am a student and under the tutelage, but I am a colleague at this time, and so it's nice to see it come full circle.
Right
A
on.
little twist is now I'm in a position of doing for others as he did for me, as I take on, as we'll talk, the student charter of Amen and being that person for them. But that's the model I'm working from.
Right on. Right on. Can coming through your undergraduate experience, knowing that you had your mom who graduated and went into teaching, were you going through undergrad with the vision of wanting to be a teacher?
I actually wasn't initially wanting to teach. I took a circuitous route, meaning my initial response for even getting in law enforcement was to help those who could not help themselves. I had a good, as most folks of color has a good Christian raising with mom and taught to be of service and to understand not to victimize or abuse others. So my passion, if not to be in the ministry in the church, was to be in the ministry in the actual field of helping people. And I rationalized at a very young age that people at times of emergencies, first responders, they need to have that person be the right person. They need to have that person have a heart for service. They need to have that person be the one who wants to help. I get emotional talking about it because it's real. So that was my goal, to be that person. So I went into law enforcement with particular perspective of I want to be there at a time of need. So I wanted to give it law enforcement a couple of years, maybe 5 or 10. It ended up being all the way through to 21. But along the lines, I met a person who was a marriage family therapist in one of the cases I was working as I was working on my associate degree. And I went, that's what I want to do. That's where I want to be of service. That's when the light bulb went off. That's the people or the platform that I can do the most as an agent of change. A nice side note is when I was going into my evaluation, you have a psychological evaluation. The psychiatrist looked at my profile. He says, "You realize you're not the normal standard person who I see coming in here." And I said, "Yeah, I get all that. I'm unique. I'm an individual." He goes, "No, you're going to find that you are the exception to the rule, and you're going to get a lot of pushback. And if you look at things like George Floyd and Rodney King and other of those abusive relationships, that's what he was referring to. I'm going to come from a heart of being an agent of change and helping and represent the underserved and being that person who stands in the gap." And that was what my mission and goal was. And then after finishing my undergrad and then going into grad, it was to find and to fulfill that position of being a therapist, a counselor at a more influential level. And so that was what shaped me. That was the moments. You always have a few checkpoints that sort of send you right or left. And those were, as we were up to date with my journey, those were some pivotal points.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you very much for that. Did that aha moment, did that happen before or after you graduated from your undergrad?
I was right in the moment of finishing the bachelor's,
Hmm.
ready to finish the bachelor's. And I really didn't know at that point. I probably would have started teaching sociology at that time, but meaning that was my love. I had another, I didn't mention him, but really influential sociology teacher in my community college 2 year level who lit the fire in me to be a sociologist, and
Mm.
another light bulb moment. But I knew at that point I liked sociology, didn't know what I could and would do with it. But I'm still in that mission of service and wanting to be and help victims at the time of need. So that marriage family therapist position, being a marriage family therapist, or what they called it at that time, marriage family and child therapist, MFCC. Now it's called marriage family therapist, MFT. So it gave me that breath of being able to help everyone and anyone, and that's what I wanted to do. So as I transferred from in the bachelor's, I knew I had to go and get a master's. So the master's program is where I centered into that specific field of study.
Right on. Thank you
Mhm.
for. I appreciate that insight because a lot of students, even right now, right, this is graduation season. A lot of
Yes.
students are getting asked the question, "What are they going to do?" There's a lot of time. There's pressure on students to have the answer and to know. And in that, when can you share how you felt with making the pivot, the shift from thinking sociology one way, and then you have this aha moment?
Yes.
What was that like for you?
Yeah, it truly was. People say light bulbs goes on, or you have an aha or an epiphany, and it's really words that really are to describe this wonderful sense of that's it. Now that's what I want to do. That's where my passion is, or that's where I feel I'll be best of service or fit in perfectly. And the alignment for one's goals and objectives, that's when you know, at least for that time period, I'm fulfilling my purpose.
Yeah.
I am in sync with what and who I'm supposed to be. And I'll find, people say, you'll find your population there.
Yeah.
So it was truly a moment of inspiration, alignment, a sense of purpose, a sense that fulfills nothing else when you know I'm making a change. I have the ability to do so. I've educated or prepared myself, and now I have my client or my person in front of me. And that is basically how I feel today as this role, but
Yeah.
how I felt then when I went in to do the training and end up having clients and working as an intern. It is a moment of clarity, a moment of true purpose. Yes.
Right on. Right
Yeah.
on. Or thank you for that.
Hmm.
Can you share, and being that obviously, right, you are very experienced with working with students during this time, and not everybody has that clear vision or has come to that epiphany yet. For those who have not, what words of encouragement or what things would you offer up for folks who have not yet gotten to that point where it's clear?
Yes. And I appreciate that question because it is, we're talking just a little bit brief before we came on. That encompasses the whole scope, purpose, goal, and the guidelines for being, as I call, an agent of change. It could be the person in front of the student has the most influence at the time. We have to be, I believe, very conscious of that and appreciate that and understand and not abuse that wonderful privilege to be a person who has the power to inspire or to take away from someone's spirit and their ability to be what they truly should and could be. I take it as a responsibility and I appreciate the power that it provides that I can have that influence. But with that having been said, what I would recommend for others is to, again, certainly acknowledge that number one, they do not and will not ever know it all. Number two, the ability to be humble enough to admit if I don't know, I'll look it up, or I don't know, let's find it together. I often times now do what the third one is to continue to evolve and adapt to the outside changes within the world that affect the classroom. And so I'll have students, hey, do you know what this word means, or do you know what this particular perspective might be, like such as in we might call it carcinal cynic, criminal cynic. I'm sorry, criminal cynic type of, or criminogenic is another word for it in population. Well, nobody uses that word. So let's look up criminogenic. Let's Google it. Let's see what the Google says, and then let's compare that to the text. And then now let me get you to give me your impression of which one is accurate, or how would we apply it, or is it current, is it past, or is it something that we need to look at in the future? So what we're talking about is application. So we move from a position of just theoretical perspective, knowledge for the sake of knowledge, to applying, and of course with our new students, millennials, Generation Ys, Generation Zs, and so on. They want application. They are not interested in historical knowledge for the sake of history. And even if you are a history buff, you want to, or a history instructor, you want to know, what does it mean to me? So it has to be personalized. You have to make sure you communicate and make it applicable. And it needs to continuously, you would pivot to make sure that it's something that fits their generational way of understanding or way of implementing the material. So making it real, making it something that's not pedantic, meaning fancy words for just I'm talking at you but not to you, so that they can appreciate, oh, that went in, oh, that made sense. Here's where I'm going to take that, and we have a live, vibrant dialogue. So as you can sort of sense the excitement I have, I want them to be able to experience and feel that and say, yeah, where's that hot spot for you? What does that mean to you? How would you apply that? What do you think they were thinking when they came up with this particular theory? Does it really apply to today, or do we need to change and modify that? So you can really do a lot with teaching and be enthusiastically, courageously, unapologetically, and certainly empowering with the way you communicate to students.
Yes, sir. I Man, I can tell already that the students really get a lot out of coming into your classes and into your lectures, man. Man, thank you for what you're doing
Thank you.
to help increase student success.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. And
Um, if you don't mind sharing, when you think about the three audiences within the professionals of higher ed, faculty, staff, and leaders,
yeah,
and I think you kind of started to share some nuggets in regards to this question, but I'll still ask it directly. What would you share with those audience more than what in addition to what you've already shared,
yeah,
that can help to build and think about building trust with today's students? And I know you mentioned the
yeah,
different generations that we are interacting with and supporting now. So, what
yeah,
would you share with those audiences?
yeah. We'll start with students because they come in and as you know, they've changed a bit over the time. They've mostly technology based. Their attention span is shorter for lecture, so it has to be adaptable and it has to have a bit of a technological inference or implementation. We need to be mindful, incorporate, not run away from, not be foreboding. And we didn't mention pandemic, but that changed the way everyone did business
Hmm.
because business for everyone changed. Went from a remote. We had quarantine. We had 6 feet away from everyone. We had no one on campus. We had folks who hadn't been instructors trained and/or competent in a modality called Zoom
Yep.
that they now had no choice, and so they became an expert. And this is somewhat obviously not possible within 1 week. How
Right.
could that happen? So you're now challenged as an instructor to reach students in a technological way where you don't have the old standard classroom or what we now call the Socratic method of what we call chalk and talk. Students are changing. Students are adaptable, but you have to, as students come hungry, come thirsty, and of course they need to be understanding. As I told, finals week this week, my hope that I said for the students, you've learned more than what's in the text. You've learned soft skills. You learn real world perspective. You've learned mannerisms. You've learned timeliness, time management. You've learned courtesy. You've learned presentation. You've learned, and hopefully I always try to build vocabulary, new words that will help you stretch and grow. So I would say for students to come expecting to grow. I say, if you come in my class and I haven't taught you something new, then I have failed, because class is to challenge what current knowledge and expand and go beyond to give you new information. So you would always have something in my class that I would want you to say as a takeaway. This is new, hadn't heard it. Let me think on it. Let me chew it on a little bit and make sure it is something I can use. If not, store it away for the next time. So
Yep.
come with that open mind. Come expecting to be pushed, a little pull, a little tossed and tugged at, so that we can get you thinking new ways about different things. And the last thing, as I believe in the adult model, which is they come with a richness. And I've always knew I had that. So I never wanted someone to talk at me or talk down to me, but to talk with me. So
Mm.
that's what students always, anyone else would want, someone to say, how do I contribute? What is my expertise? What's my outside experience to this complement of called the classroom? So
Yeah.
students, stay in that position, stay hungry, and ask questions. Don't pretend or allude that you have no questions, because we all do. And
Yeah.
last thing I'll say on that is you're asking a question that someone else was afraid to ask. And we need to know that's a very true dynamic.
Hmm.
So those are for students. For faculty, it sort of doves into the same area of bringing the two together. When being current, I would say a minimum of every 5 years. My curriculum has to change, and my references over my 25 years of teaching has had to change at least every 5 years. Now it's sort of almost every 3 years, whereas my references, my indications of connections to outside historical or outside applications compared to the textbook, even though the textbook may be the latest edition, they still have to go beyond that and make it applicable and real to the student. teach it in a way. That's where the generational learning styles, the
Mm.
flexibility, the spontaneity, the sense of being vulnerable, the idea of relating and connecting with students has to be authentic and real. And if you're not publishing it within your own expertise, it's not going to, over an hour of lecture, it's going to come out that you're just sort of talking, but you're not believing, walking the walk that you're talking. So that's for instructors to stay flexible, stay in a pliable, stay in a position of always learning. I say one thing, and then we'll go to administration. I tell my students, you make me a better instructor. Now that sounds very, one of those standard comments that go, yeah, thank you, Mr. Adams. But I say, here's how you do, because I take what you tell me, I apply it, and I incorporate it in my lecture. So the other in the next incoming class goes, oh, that was good. I will tell them, I didn't know that to the class before you. They gave me the insight. They gave me the information. They gave me the way of communicating. They gave me some of their richness, which made me better. So every semester, I'm better at what I do because of what you provide in your classroom dialogue and intercourse. And that's keeping it real, because I can't and will never know it all, but I can be smart enough to use and to experience and to reach and connect with my students to say, let's talk about this and let's dialogue authentically. So I can't but be better the next time around.
Yes.
So I'm a content expert, but I can't, no, I can't experience, I can't see it, I can't process it, but we do it together.
Right on.
So lastly, I'll go to administrative folks, having, in the other previous career, been a supervisor. It's a little bit of what we said before about learning from your population, but honor them, not in an adversarial way, in a supportive way. The faculty, content experts, but they're not administrators. So bridge that gap, connect with them, converse with them, become real, but not compromise your sense of how to bring and push the institution to a higher level. But it is a collaborative process. It's a bit of a dance. One leads, one follows. One leads, one follows. And so supervisors or administrators, whether they are deans or go into the vice president or to the presidency, have to continue to wear many hats. It will require them to be what I like to say sometimes tough love, discipline, boundaries, protocols, policy. But in other ways, it's going to be the connection, fostering a sense of value within your faculty and your staff and your classified. I'll give you one very quick example. Again, we had a vice president who came in for a time. He left and went to another institution that he was first originally before he came to us as vice president. So he transferred back as a vice president. We lost a very good leader. But he did something that hadn't before been experienced, which was he met with all department chairs. I was a department chair at the time. And he met with them and just had dialogue. What's going on? What do I need to know? What would you recommend? What changes would you like to see? Let's have you tell me from your perspective. How could he walk away with that richness and gems and value that he was open to hearing and then was willing to implement? So it's that connection. When I say relational, you have to maintain and keep that. So it's not just rules and regs. It's not just policies and conformists. It's a connection that, again, we talk about with the student to the instructor or supervisor with their staff. And it's the same one from administration that has to be fostered, maintained, and developed, including, of course, team building concept. So this we've learned from pandemic, that no one person can do it on their own. Mm-hmm. And some that are here today may not be here tomorrow. So you've got to not just each one teach one, but bring someone along with you. So I'm a great proponent of mentorship as well.
Right on. Right on. Good, sir.
Thank you.
You have officially, in this 35 minutes, dropped the hammer.
Thank you.
Man, truly appreciate you. I will ask this last question. If you think about our motto with Launch Student Success is student success through equity. You think about increasing student success through an equitable lens.
Yes.
What would be a lasting thought, impression, gem that you can leave us with if you think about student success through equity?
Yes, I love, and we had the workshop where we utilized and was blessed enough to have this launch program come and explain. It was, yes we can, and yes we will. So it's a point of confidence. It's an affirmation. It's a confirmation. It's a validation. It is a statement that says, here's where we start and here's where we're going to produce and finish. And students, certainly anyone, but certainly students need to know that that's the goal of education. I take you where you are, but I'm going to drop you off. I'm going to take you to a place that you're going to publish that is beyond from where you started this journey. And I think, and more importantly, from an equity lens, I will tell you what provoked me. Someone asked me, I did the 50th anniversary of Martin Luther King. And I said, they said, what did you take from Martin Luther King? And I'll pause again because it's a more of emotional tie. But he said, I have a dream that one day my 4 kids, he said, will not be judged by the content of their color, but by their content of their quality of their character. 50 plus years, and that is still true. That is the one thing that equitizes the content of being a person, empowering a classroom and reaching and meeting that student, whether it be of color or not of color, whether it be of national origin or not of national origin, whether it be of religion or not the same religion, whatever they're a hetero or homo or binary or non-binary, it's all about equitizing where you're not judged by your skin or the absence of content of their character and being treated as a person. So lastly, I'll say again, these are things that I wholeheartedly believe in, and everybody knows the golden rule. The golden rule is do unto others as what you want done unto you. Well, guess who the center of that is? It's still you. So what is the platinum rule? And that is treat others how they need to be treated. And when you go to the platinum rule, you have now reached equitizing of how do I treat you? How do I value you? How do I communicate to you that I'm committed to you and your success? And once that's done, now let's teach.
Professor Adams, thank you, good sir.
Thank you.
Was amazing. We truly appreciate you spending some time with us on the launch pad today.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Have a beautiful day.
Thank you so much. You bet.